Hey guys, this is my video on what I like to call rabbit hole reading. It's where you start reading a book and it leads you to other books and to documentaries and to art and all this other stuff, and it's just a way that I read, and I'm wondering how many others do. So I'm going to try and start a discussion here. Hopefully it'll make sense. Alright, thanks. Hey guys, I noticed when I was shooting my library, I was getting ready to do the books, and I noticed a weird quirk of mine about reading. I don't know any other way to put it, but like down a rabbit hole reading, where you start reading someone's work, and then all of a sudden you have to read all the work, and then you have to read all the biographies and autobiographies and documentaries about them. And I found that I do that a lot, and I was just kind of wondering if anybody else does that. Like some of the stuff, like Patti Smith, this book, this is the first thing I ever knew about her. I didn't know any of the music or anything. It led me to her music, and then the books that she mentioned in it. Blake, it led me to Blake's poetry. It led me to Rimbaud's poetry. Led me to W.G. Sebald. It's stuff like that. It just Middlemarch led me to Ivanhoe because she mentioned it so much. And then with philosophy, the readings on World War II that I did and stuff led me to Hannah Arendt, and I had to have everything about her and read about her philosophy, which she's actually my favorite philosopher, I would say. The stuff that she says and the things that she has written make more sense to me than a lot of the other stuff. But that said, that led me to Simone de Beauvoir, who led me to Sartre, so I had to read all of their letters and stuff. And they led me to Camus, and it just keeps going. And as for what's in 2018, what's happening right now, I read Ulysses by James Joyce. I finally got through it last year. While I see its place in literature history and what it did and everything, that's the way I feel about it. I think I gave it like a 3. It was like, I liked it, but yeah, I could have not read it. But it did lead me to Beckett, who I had read before, back in my 20s. Sorry about this, they're right beside me. I had this Samuel Beckett reader. Yeah, it's that old. So I read him in my 20s, and then I just kind of put it down and didn't think about it again until I was reading James Joyce and reading and watching some documentaries on him while I was doing Ulysses. And that just led me everywhere. That led me to the exiled in Paris and the stories about them, like Baldwin, Beckett, all the people that went over there, which led me to Samuel Beckett's library, which I know, Lukash, you're looking at this right now. This is so cool. They went into his personal library and they went through all the annotations that he had put in all of his books, and they're in here. Well, not all of them, because it would have taken a bigger book, but it's fascinating to see what he thought of what he was reading, what was, private for him in the marginalia. It adds a lot to who he was to me, if that makes sense. I wish they did this with a lot more authors that do this. Unfortunately, like this, the first of this, when they were talking about Virginia Woolf, she hated marginalia. And if I get nothing else out of this book, I'm going to keep her idea of what it is. And she thought marginalia, Virginia Woolf called it marginalia defecation. she hated people that write in books. But Samuel Beckett didn't feel that way, so I'm glad, because this is really led into a lot of stuff about him. So yeah, this is a good book. And then because of Lukash, because I'm getting ready to read the box set of Samuel Beckett, he suggested I pick up this, which should help me get through it. And I've looked through it and it seems really good. And because of that, I picked up Damned to Fame, which is by the same guy, and it's a biography of Samuel Beckett, and it talks about his works instead of just saying, like, you know, who his grandparents were, who his parents were, and all that stuff, and leading to the... It talks about him. It talks about his work, and that's what I was looking for. So yeah, Damned to Fame. And then of course, this is what I'm starting on in 2018. Not going to say it's a TBR, because I won't read it if I say that, but I am going to get through the works of Beckett. And I think that's about it. I just wanted to ask if other people do that. Is that how you figure out your books, or do you just let people recommend them? Do you read like lit magazines to find out where other books are? Or, I mean, I even do it with poetry. I've got some examples of poetry that went like that. So it's like I went from Emily Dickinson to Frost to Wordsworth, and then from Elizabeth Bishop I went to Robert Lowell, and then I found Berryman, and then from Berryman to Hart Crane, and then Philip Larkin. I mean, they all mention either each other's poetry or something about the other person, and I'm like, oh, I gotta find out about them. And then like Ted Hughes led to Sylvia Plath. I know most people do it the other way around, but I found Ted Hughes first. So Sylvia Plath led to Anne Sexton, who I think is amazing. So just stuff like that. Even with the art that I like Dolly led me to the poet Lorca, and Lorca to Neruda, and Gustave Doré, who I like his prints for Blake and Don Quixote, and he just does some great art, did some great artwork. That's what led me to the Don Quixote and reading it, because the book of art that I got of his, it just looked amazing, and so I had to read the book. So I know this is a little bit everywhere. I hope you're able to get what I'm trying to get across here, and let me know in the comments if you, well, bottom shelf, let me know on the bottom shelf if anybody else does this, or, you know, if this is just something that I do. Alright, thanks guys, bye.